Right, people, one of the most consistent things that comes with the self-improvement industry and positive behaviours is a fear that you're not doing enough. And equally well, we can find ourselves in positions where we're reliably concerned that we're sort of constantly warding off the demons at the door rather than actually progressing. And one of the most consistent themes within self-improvement is this fear that you're not improving. Now, this has always been quite funny to me because this will be reliably one of the perennial fears of the person who is doing the most work and putting in the most effort toward themselves when it comes to improvement, and yet we will be the people who sit with the grave concern that we are not doing what we should be doing. One of the consistent themes that I have found myself being concerned with has been the fear of making a mistake. And more specifically, whether as a result of making a mistake, I have all of a sudden sort of backtracked my way to day one and all of a sudden I've lost my progress and I'm clearly not the person I thought I was. One of the grave concerns of self-improvement is you make a mistake, be it relapsing with certain sites on the internet, or maybe you have just bad habits in general fit into this perfectly well, but you know the sort of ones I'm talking about when it comes to self-improvement. We'll make a mistake, we'll go somewhere we shouldn't have gone or do something we shouldn't have done, and from that point, we are swarmed with this sense of guilt within ourselves that we aren't who we thought we were, and we've clearly just yet again we're at the mercy of our whims, and we've somehow failed again. I think this is a grave concern for people, and people consistently find themselves concerned with this. I certainly do. Something that I would like to sort of voice to you, and probably could do with bouncing back towards myself, is you don't lose any of your progress if you make a mistake. We're constantly on this sort of grind towards improvement, and that, in a lovely way, never stops. Now, the fear that people can come to is, or I have certainly found, is this idea that you're sort of constantly doing things just to ward off the negativity, and at some point it catches up, and when it catches up and you make that mistake, you then guilt trip yourself. I think it's important for us to reframe that when you make a mistake, it really doesn't matter as much as we think it does. If you do something you shouldn't have done, then just go again. And it really is that simple. And a lot of the time we can sort of paralyse ourselves with this sense of fear that we have sold out almost. You know, if you're someone, reliably, the people listening to this will probably understand the woes of dealing with the P-word sites. If you're a bloke around my age, I'm sure you understand. You all know what I'm talking about. I don't need to go any further into this. You know what I'm talking about. If that is something that you struggle with, it's very easy for us to feel tremendously guilty when we use that site. I'm going to use this interchangeably. This could be bad food, this could be bad habits, this could, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. When we make the mistake of re-indulging, we then hold on to it so vehemently and with so much sort of ferocity towards ourselves, and as a result of doing that, we sort of perpetuate exactly what it is that we don't want to happen. We feel as though when we make these mistakes, that what's going to happen is it's going to bleed into the rest of our lives, and we're going to become the sort of person who would be consistently doing drugs or watching porn. I've said the word now. Or, you know, these sort of things. We sort of fear that this one moment of it, it's like, oh, here we go. Now this is my arc of being a total degenerate. And we sort of allow that to happen in many respects by bombarding ourselves with a sense of guilt. And I think it's important actually to realise that a lot of the worry that we have on this topic is self-integrated. We sort of create it for ourselves because we put ourselves in a position where it's more and more likely for us to just continue feeling that way, because we won't let it go. We won't make a mistake and just go, oh, do you know what, actually, it doesn't really matter that much. I only went on that site once, I just won't do that again. We don't do that. We'll beat ourselves up and castigate and ridicule. And I think it's very important to realise not to do that. And I think a nice little sort of addition that I'm going to throw in here as to bring the point together nicely is not to catastrophize so much when it comes to self-improvement, because it's very easy when you're sort of constantly striving for things and you've got that real sort of warrior's mindset. When you have that, it's very easy to constantly be sort of worrying that you're not quite where you need to be. There was a wonderful quote actually I saw on this, on the fact that winners never feel as though they're doing enough and losers always feel as though they're doing too much. And I think there's absolutely a lesson to be found within that when it comes to this, is you're sort of constantly worrying, oh, have I done enough? Have I done enough to sort of satiate that desire and become the person that I want to be? Or am I still falling off the other end of it? Stop catastrophizing over it. Yeah, just chill out for a minute and realise, if you're someone who is working on yourselves on a consistent basis, or on yourself, should I say, if you're someone who's doing that on a consistent basis, you really are going to be fucking putting it away. You're going to be doing some really good stuff for yourself, and it's very easy to denigrate that and sort of lose the joy of that by being concerned that you're not doing enough. Catastrophizing is a massive part of a lot of people who have really got that conqueror's mindset, and it's funny because in many respects that is the mindset that promulgates the results that you're looking for. But it has this sort of wicked byproduct that we really need to let go as to push past and forward onto better things. Because you can't constantly be sort of chasing yourself away from something, because it really does take its toll. And you can get very tired when you do that, because you're constantly active. You're never really relaxed, because, you know, this is something I went through for a long time, was this fear of, if I was to be sat down watching TV, that all of a sudden somehow I'm losing my place and people are running past me, in the sort of metaphorical sense. I hope they're not in my living room running past me. That would be bad. And I got into a really bad way with this, because I couldn't allow myself to just relax and be in a state of just comfort, because I was catastrophizing. I was so worried that every single moment that I'm not doing something actively progressive, that I'd be doing something sort of inherently regressive. And I think this is going to tie me in with a nice point here, just to round that out. Don't catastrophize so much. If you make a mistake, it really doesn't matter that much. Just go again. And if you are catastrophizing on the front of, am I doing enough? If you're wondering whether you're doing enough, you are probably doing enough. And that is going to tie me into our next point, my good sirs, fellows, madams, and organisms. Don't rob yourself of praise. It's very, very easy, if you're someone who is striving towards things, to put yourself in this bracket where you're almost not human when it comes to expectations and sort of comprehensions, I suppose. You are working in this uncommon bracket of person in which it is the standard procedure for you to just keep going that extra mile, keep doing that extra bit, and sort of we can get ourselves into this state by doing this where we don't warrant ourselves any sort of praise. It's almost as though, why do you deserve praise for doing what you know you should be doing? Well, because I don't have to do it. I'm not forced to do this. The positive acts that I'm carrying out for the benefit of myself is something that I've chosen to do, unless you don't believe in free will. And with that being said, you deserve some praise for that. And it's very easy to starve yourself of sort of good feeling towards what you're doing, because you're so focused on the next thing. I have noticed something that I fall into very consistently is, I'll sort of set a bracket for something and I'll get stuck in this, like, I wrote it here and I was going to try and say it because it sounded nice, but I can't think of it. Sort of this, like, this, what would I call it? Sort of, the goal is there. Say 40 push-ups is the goal, and that is the benchmark trap. That's what I'm trying to say. Where if you said that you were going to do 40 push-ups, 40 push-ups doesn't actually satisfy the itch. It doesn't actually satiate the desire. If you get 50, then you'll feel good because you think, oh, I said I'd do 40 and I actually did 50. Now I feel good. The problem comes when it comes to not providing yourself with praise is you can get into this mindset to such an extent where 44 wouldn't be enough. Because why didn't you do 50? And we provide ourselves with a compliment on the basis of, I feel as though I am good enough to do more than I said I would. But then inadvertently, if you do what you said you would do, that's not enough. And if you do any more, then you can find yourself thinking, well, I only did 4 more. Why didn't I do 6 more? I should have done 6 more. And we can get stuck in this sort of anti-praise mindset where we don't feel as though we warrant praise for our efforts. And this is totally wrong, and I also think it's dangerous, because if you don't provide yourself with a fair amount of good feeling for the things that you're doing, then this brain is not necessarily going to keep up with what it is that you are telling it. It's not going to understand that, look, we're delaying this gratification because we know it feels good. It might not get that message the same way if you're not feeling good for doing it. Because think about it. If you're saying to your brain, essentially, to put this in the most layman of terms, if you're saying to your brain, look, we're not going to do that because that doesn't actually feel as good as you think it feels. We're going to do this because this feels very good. But the seed that you're going to plant is not going to be the fruit that you eat today. So we're going to put the seed in, but we're not going to eat the fruit until Tuesday. If you do that, and when Tuesday comes around, you have no sort of good feeling as a result of the fact that you're just striving forward and you're looking at the next goal rather than praising yourself for where you are. If you do that, how much more likely do you think you're going to be to do the negative habits that are easy? Because your brain's going to become all the more enticed to those things. Because it's going to look and it's going to go, well, you tell me that going for a run is going to make me feel better than eating that chocolate cake. But then when you come back from your run, the only thought that I seem to get is, why didn't you run an extra 1 kilometre? I don't get that so much when I eat the cake, so maybe I'll just eat the cake. Maybe I'll tell you to just eat the cake. Should we just eat the cake? That's going to happen far more likely if you don't provide yourself with praise. And I think the sort of consistent theme that I'm going to try and touch on here, and sort of I shall push this point quite strongly for years to come, is self-improvement has a lot of great things within it. It is, in my opinion, I think it's the only route. I think you should improve yourself as much as you can. But you can sort of take it to such an extent where you're not actually even getting the benefits of self-improvement because you just feel shit. You just feel as though, why didn't I do that? Or I could have done more there, or I messed up again. Be careful with that, because you want to be in this for the long run. And trust me, as someone who's gone through the throes with this, you can be in it for the long run, so long as you set yourself up well. And one of the best ways to set yourself up well is to provide yourself with praise. So, I think you get the point. Praise is a good thing. Now, another one. Don't always do the things that you don't want to do, but you know are good for you. It's very consistent with self-improvement that you do the hard things because they're hard. Why are you doing that? Because it's hard. Because you're not, as my favourite bull David Goggins says. That's great, yeah? And I advocate that tremendously. As someone who went on a run literally last night because they didn't want to, I understand it, and I think it's great, and I think you should do it. But don't just live your life on the basis of doing things you don't want to do all the time. Because if you don't have the release of things that you just like to do, you're going to be fucking miserable. Trust me, you will be miserable because you will not feel any sense of satisfaction towards the things you're doing. And one step further, you're going to feel a sense of sort of fear of the things you're doing. I found, for instance, I train martial arts, I'm not actively training, but still doing bits and bobs. And I went to a fight gym, and this was a Muay Thai fight gym. And I put myself through going there for over a year. And I came to recently realise that I actually had days and days of sort of negative, painful anticipation of the fact that on Saturday morning I'm going to get my fucking arse handed to me. Fuck's sake, why am I doing this? And I actually denigrated the quality of my week as to put up with this, yeah, but you really don't want to do it, so you're going to feel good for doing it. And then I came out of it thinking, my rib hurts, my head hurts, and I don't even feel better for it because I've got to go and fucking do the same thing next week. Be careful with that, right? Because if you just do things you don't want to do, you are going to make yourself miserable. Think about it on a strategic basis. If I said to you, taking the self-improvement part out of it, I'm going to make you do every single day, I'm going to make you do a litany of things that you really don't want to do. Are you going to be happy? No, you're probably not, because you're doing things you don't want to do. Now, don't get this confused. I think from my perspective, I'm sort of looking at this a bit differently now, where a lot of the hard things I do, I'm used to doing. And as a result of that, they're not, I don't regret them, or I don't regret them. I don't sort of, I'm not scared of them the way that I once would have been. But there are things that I decided to just get out of my routine, because I realised that what I was actually doing is just making myself miserable. I really was putting myself in a position where it's like, why are you doing this again? Oh, because it makes us feel good. Do you feel good? No. Why are we doing it then? And it is exactly that. I think the sort of reframe I'd like to add, just to tie in the point that I have just made on mine, is you can find a better way, as in a happier way, of doing difficult things. And I think that's important. I do think it is critical that you do things you don't want to do, but just don't make your life entirely about that. Because if you do, you're really not going to enjoy the time very much. And I think a sort of a little addition that I'd like to add in here, because I think it's nice, is when do hard things feel the best? Now, given the fact I'm talking to a camera, if I wait for you to respond, I'm going to be waiting for a long time. So what I shall say is the time where hard things feel the best, where you feel the most gratification, is when you're doing easy things. It's when you've had the really hard training session in the morning and you've decided in the evening that you're going to go out. You feel a whole lot better, and you feel really, in fact, really good about the night out that you're going on because you put the work in. What lesson do you think is in there, my good sirs? When you do hard things, the reward often comes in the time when you're feeling good. So you need to allow yourself some time to feel good. If you don't do that, you're not going to enjoy. You're not going to reap the rewards of what it is that you're doing. It's very easy to find yourself falling into this habit of doing hard things because they're hard, which is great, but then not providing yourself with any time to relax when you're actually going to feel good about the hard stuff that you've done. If you don't ever relax, you're not going to be happy. And it's sort of totally oppositional to the self-improvement industry, I feel, to say this. I might get kicked out. I don't know if it's red or blue pill. Whatever pill it is, I'm taking both of them. And a lot of people will not agree with the message here. A lot of people will sort of shout from the rooftops about this. I saw something on Twitter, right, I don't even know why I go on Twitter for. I go on Twitter to post for you, and this is what comes out of it. I go on Twitter and I see this guy saying about, quotes, I want to quit my 9 to 5. Well, just do it then. Well, it doesn't work like that, though. You can't do that. It's not, do you know what, boss? Actually, I'm not going to come here anymore. I'm going to start my business today. And as a result of starting my business, I'm going to lose everything else because I don't have any money now to do what I need to do, because some fucking knob on Twitter said that I can just start my business today and I'll be okay. roundabout way that I'm getting to here is don't be idealistic when it comes to self-improvement, because it's not that simple. Keep the human element into it, and one of the perennial or prevalent rather human elements within self-improvement is we are wanting of relaxation. We want to do things just for the fun of it, or because we enjoy it, or we should not always be doing things just for the sake of, oh yeah, but I did 400 push-ups today because of that. Fuck that. Make sure that you do some things that you actually enjoy doing. And I'm going to throw a spanner into the authentic, empathetic frameworks that I have placed today. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to say, if you're angry, or you feel negative, or you feel... I'd say negativity is quite a big one here. If you feel that way, then leaning into the self-improvement thing is great. And I should tell you why it's great. I noticed that I was finding myself in this train of thought, recursive thought over the last few weeks, where negative thought would come in and I would sort of go, oh man, fucking hell, negative thought again. And leave it at that and not do anything about it. And I came to a point essentially where I thought, fuck this, and I went on the punch bag and I listened to one of the Andrew Tate songs, this one, if you can hear that one, that I listened to that for about fuck knows, I don't even know how long, and I wailed on a punch bag for a good while. And after that point I had a nice conversation with my lovely mum and really hashed some things out, and that felt a lot better. I felt much better for doing something that was hard and for exerting myself in a really strong manner. And I think that's important. I think there is a lesson absolutely to be derived from hard behaviour, difficulty, because it makes you feel prestigious. It makes you feel as though you've completed something, because you have. And it makes you feel competent. It sends the good signals, which is why I'm not gonna say shit against self-improvement at all. I'm saying it against the knuckle-headed way of doing it. But sometimes that's exactly what you're looking for. So if you're angry or you feel as though you've got some sort of just shit going on, there is nothing wrong at all with really leaning into the self-improvement thing, and I actually think it's quite a good idea. If you're worried that you're not up to scratch, then sometimes leaning into it and being more diligent when it comes to your positive behaviours is a good thing. I think, to round this out nicely, as to sort of tie a bow on the what's the word? I can't think of the word. To tie a bow on this sort of idea of positive versus negative ways of self-improvement, there's a time and a place for it. And I think one of the very useful sort of reframes here is that you can go too much one way and too much the other way, and just keep doing that until you find yourself in the middle, because I think that is a very useful way of doing this. You'll do too much of the hedonism, too much of the hippie peace, love, man, sit in a hammock sort of shit. Then you'll realise, do you know what, actually, I feel like a bit of a fucking bum. Let me go and do some hard shit. You do some hard shit, then you'll feel reasonably unfulfilled because you're doing hard shit and not feeling good for it, and then you'll fall into the middle somewhere. And this is not to sound like a total pessimist, because what I shall say is, when you do this, the artful dance that at one point or another provides you with the space in the middle also brings with it a tremendous feeling of joy. I notice that you do go through these stages where you do one too much, another too much, and you don't feel too good on either front when you're too far on the other ends. It's sort of progressing. Like, you feel good, not feeling so good, I kind of feel shit. It kind of goes that way. And what I shall say is, when you get to the middle, as in when you've realised that one end of the spectrum is too much and the other is also too much, when you get to the middle, you're going to be having a very good time. Because that is where it's at. When you've done enough work to realise that you're feeling good about yourself, but you're providing yourself with the appropriate amount of rest and relaxation and just tranquility, when you do that, you're going to feel great. And with that being said, I hope someone's listening to this, because I've really enjoyed talking to myself in a shed. So with that being said, people, I love you all, I always do, and I hope to see you soon, or listen to you, or see you in a bit.